Hello, I'm Kurma and welcome. In this series, we're going to show you how to cook a wide variety of international vegetarian cuisine from over 30 countries. And in this edition, we're going to show you how to prepare the third in a series of 3 summer patio lunches, consisting of pasta pesto, French steamed vegetable salad, and baked cheesecake. So, let's begin. You know, pine nuts are used in many, many cuisines of the world, but I think the most sophisticated use of pine nuts comes from Genoa in northern Italy, where they're used in a very, very famous pasta dish, pasta pesto alla genovese. Pounded pine nuts, chopped fresh basil, and lots of fresh Parmesan cheese are mixed together for a superlative pasta sauce. And that's what we're going to do now. Pasta pesto with a beautiful fresh sauce. Let me show you the ingredients we've got over here. From our forest of basil there, I've taken a clump of basil which I'm going to chop up, and maybe we need a little more. Altogether we're going to use 1½ cups of chopped fresh basil for our very basil flavoured sauce. And over here we have a platter with 4 ounces, about 125 grams of grated Parmesan cheese. Nice fresh off the block batch of cheese. And over here we've got a 1¼ pounds, that's about 575 grams of pasta linguine, special type of thin ribbon shaped pasta, which is very, very specially used for pasta pesto. And on our platter here we've got a teaspoon of salt, 3/4 teaspoon of asafoetida powder, this is my special addition to this recipe, 3 tablespoons of pine nuts, which we're going to roast up very soon. We've got a tablespoon of olive oil, and in the centre 1/2 cup of olive oil to be used for our pasta sauce. Let's take a look at our pine nuts over here. These are actually a very, very oil-rich seed. They have a rich, creamy flavour. They can be substituted with walnuts, but I prefer, and many people who make pasta pesto prefer the use of the real thing, real pine nuts. They're a little expensive because they have to be individually shelled and extracted from pine cones. They're very, very rich in oil. Let me squeeze one for you here, just to show you how much oil is contained inside. Look at that, it's just oozing with oil, and this oil has a very, very wonderful flavour. So let's begin our pasta pesto today by plunging our pasta, our linguine pasta, into our boiling water. And while we're doing that, we're going to continue on with our operation here. Let's grab it over here. If you can't get a hold of pasta linguine, you can try trinette. Both of these are popularly used in this pasta dish. This particular shape is recommended. Okay, the water's temporarily gone off the boil, but it shan't be long before it goes back on. I'm going to keep an eye on my pasta. While I'm doing that, in front of our pasta pot here, we've got a little fry pan. I'm going to toast up my pine nuts. So let's pop a little flame on there, like so. And we're going to take our reserved olive oil, and we're going to toast our pine nuts. This gives the pine nuts, the pignoli, their very, very wonderful aroma, which is increased by the toasting operation. So here's our pine nuts. Let's pop them in our oil and toast them until they go a little golden brown. There we go. Now we're going to gently toast them until they go a lovely golden colour. So this roasting process only takes a few seconds because we only want to just turn our little pine nuts a little golden colour. Along with the aroma, you'll notice the colour change here. This is quite dramatic. In fact, these are done, so I'm going to turn off our flame there and shake these around a little bit. So I'm going to pop them down there for a second, and I'm going to chop up my basil leaves, just roughly, like so I can pound them up. Now, in Italy, traditionally, the basil leaves and the pine nuts, in fact the cheese, in fact everything for this sauce, would be pounded up in a lovely mortar like this, or even bigger, sometimes big granite mortars, boom, 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 like that. And so it's very, very natural, and the aroma is wafting up. What I'm going to do today is pop it in our food processor to save a little time. Now, I need quite a large quantity of basil leaves here, so I'm going to blend these up, and then I'm going to pop a few more in there to get the right quantity. Like so. That's as far as we're going to go at this point. I want to measure our basil leaves here and make sure we've got the right quantity. It's got to have a very rich basil flavour. So let's pop them in our measuring cup really quickly. Yeah, we're going to need to do a few more. This is a lovely batch of basil that I hand-picked from the markets this morning. Very healthy specimen indeed. There's really no substitute for fresh basil in pasta pesto. I wouldn't even dream of using a batch of dried basil for this. It just doesn't have the same lovely rich flavour. Overwhelming flavour, in fact. This is, I'm practically swooning here from the fragrance of the basil. You can quite successfully grow your own basil. It's one of those herbs that isn't too hard to grow, and it's also fun. Growing your own herbs is fun and very rewarding. So let's give this a blast. There we go, that's the right quantity of basil. Let's grab our pine nuts that we had toasted on the stove over here and chop them up coarsely on our cutting board here. This helps the grinding up process in our mortar and pestle or in our food processor. Just chop them coarsely. Wonderful fragrance here of the pine nuts. Notice how they've darkened up a bit. They, as a lot of nuts do, tend to darken a little bit after you stop cooking them because they're still very hot. Well, that's sufficient, I think. Let's grab those nuts, put them into a bowl here, and continue on. Let's not lose any of our little nuts here. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is toast up our yellow asafoetida powder in our fry pan over here. Just take a little slurp of oil out of our big batch of oil there, pop it in the pan, turn on the flame, like so, and pop in our asafoetida powder. This just gives a lovely fragrance to our pasta pesto. As I said, this is my little addition to pasta pesto. Very special flavour of asafoetida, which you should give a try. See how this is bubbling there a little bit? That's as far as it needs to go. So that's off. Let's pick it up and take it over here towards the cutting area. Take a few of these little basil leaves and help the asafoetida into the little food processor here, like so. Now into that food processor, we're going to add our chopped up pignoli, our nuts, like so. We've got our salt, that's our teaspoon of salt. All the rest of our olive oil. Very oily, rich sauce this, but very traditional. We've got the extra basil leaves here. And we're going to add some of our Parmesan cheese, which I haven't quite finished grating up over here to get the right quantity. This is our lovely fresh block of Parmesan cheese. When I say fresh, it's of course quite mature, but it's fresh as opposed to just horrible powdered stuff in a carton. That looks like enough cheese. We're going to put the majority of this in our machine here and leave some for garnish, well, for sprinkling on top of the pasta when it's done. Now let's pop our lid on our noisy little machine again. This thing needs a silencer. Sounds like my Honda. Well, there it is, a wonderful batch of pesto sauce. I'm going to transfer this into our bowl now. Transfer it into our bowl and get ready for the grand finale, which is popping it on top of our pasta, which is looking like it's almost done over here. Won't be long anyway. This rich, green, exotic sauce will have your guests, what's the word, in ecstasy, I guess is about the thing that comes to mind here. First time I tasted this sauce, I was addicted, totally addicted. Look at our pesto sauce here, isn't it just absolutely delightful? Rich green colour. Let's check our pasta again now. I think it's just about ready. Let's turn off our flame. It certainly is ready. It's just perfect, just a little squeeze here. Let's take it over to our colander. Pour it through. There we go. Nice batch of pasta, linguine. A quick rinse with some warm water. Like so. Shake off all that excess water. Now, of course, the best way to serve pasta is piping hot. So you make sure when you're going to serve this dish, the guests are all sitting out there and they're hungry and they're waiting. Where's the pasta? And you run it in hot. I'll just grab a plate here. Make sure when you serve pasta pesto, you have some extra sauce and some extra Parmesan cheese for the guests to put on their own little servings. Put our nice hot batch of pasta here in the middle of our plate, like so. Lovely steamy pasta. Right. My glass is almost fogging up, not quite. Let's pop on some lovely pesto sauce here. Like so, save a bit extra sauce. And finally, last but not least, lovely serving of fresh Parmigiana. And there you have it. Pasta pesto alla genovese. Pasta pesto. You know, salads are a refreshing contrast to other dishes in the meal. This one is especially delightful. It's a French steamed vegetable salad. Lovely chunks of vegetables are steamed and then coated with a French salad dressing. Let's have a look at our lovely vegetables here for this delightful salad. Over here we've got 4 large carrots that have been washed and almost peeled here. They're going to be chopped up into 1/2-inch cubes. We've got 2 cups of fresh green beans, nice and crisp and fresh. They've been cut into 3/4-inch lengths. We've got a large cucumber here which is going to be diced very soon. Same with our 3 new potatoes. We've got a small piece of, half a small cauliflower here broken up into florets. We've got 2 cups of freshly shelled peas. And over on our platter here we have the ingredients for our French salad dressing. 2/3 of a cup of fresh lemon juice, 1/2 teaspoon of dry mustard seed powder. We've got a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 cup of olive oil. So let's plunge our carrots into there, shall we? Carrots and the green beans, lovely crisp French beans for a French salad, little chunks of potato, and our peas, freshly potted peas. You wouldn't believe how long it took me to pod those peas, a long time. And we're going to add our cauliflowers a little later because the cauliflowers cook a little quicker than everything else. While that's all happening, let me just clean up here a little bit, scrape my scrapings and peelings off into my little lid here, which is my intermediary between me and the rubbish bin, like so. Let's make our French salad dressing, shall we? In fact, we'll make it right here in our bowl. Come over here and I'll show you how to do it. It's quite simple and straightforward. We've got lemon juice, like so. It's got a little cucumber pip in there. That's not part of the recipe. We'll leave him in, I think. We've got some lovely virgin olive oil. This makes, by the way, more dressing than what we require for this recipe. This is mustard powder. And we've got some salt. We've got some lovely fresh cracked black pepper. I'm going to put a bit of parsley in there just for fun. Let's whisk it all up. There's our French salad dressing. Well, that was pretty simple and straightforward. Well, everything's looking good here. Let's just test our cauliflowers. I came back before and everything else was done, and the cauliflowers are now done also. So we can cool these down very quickly. My secret method here, turn off the flame and fill it full of ice. There's nothing like a big bowl of ice to cool down your vegetables. It really does a good job. In fact, it cools that water down quicker than you can imagine. Melts the ice pretty quick too. What that does actually, it fixes the lovely green colour in your vegetables. Stops them losing that lovely greenness, at least the beans and the peas anyway. Let's take this over to the sink now and drain it. Now, colander. Here we go. Let's spray it with some cold water to refresh it after its ordeal. Okay. Now we need to drain our vegetables thoroughly, like so. Let's drain off every last drop of water here, even a few bits of ice left in the colander. Pop our vegetables in our nice large glass bowl. Let's bring that over here. Don't forget your little cucumbers. They've been waiting patiently for us to finish. We didn't steam them, of course. Let's fold all this together like so. Now our French dressing. Now remember I said that I wasn't going to use all of this. This is a bit larger than what the recipe calls for, but not much. Putting quite a bit of dressing in here. There we go. Let's fold all this in now. It's looking very glossy, with a lovely aroma there of lemon and oil coming out. This is very, very refreshing salad, this. This is one of my top 10 favourite salads. It's very hearty and very tasty. So all we need to do now is pop this in the fridge, chill it, and when all the guests are sitting there and ready to go on the patio, you can take the bowl of salad out of the fridge, spoon it onto a nice decorative tray like this, and it's ready to go. All it needs now, of course, is a sprinkle of lovely parsley to make it look very attractive, and we have a delicious summer patio French steamed vegetable salad. You know, a baked cheesecake makes a spectacular finish to any dinner. I'm going to show you now how to make a very favourite type of cheesecake. This is made with ricotta and cream cheese, baked in the oven and smothered with a delicious fruit topping. This recipe was given to me by an old friend of mine, expatriate Jewish cook from New York. Let's have a look at the ingredients for this luscious cream cheese and ricotta cheesecake. Here we have the ingredients for our filling, starting with 7.5 ounces, that's about 500 grams of ricotta cheese, the same quantity of softened cream cheese. We've got 1/3 cup of fresh lemon juice. Over here we've got some sugar, that's 1.5 cups of sugar. We've got 2 tablespoons of arrowroot powder, 1 1/3 cups of fresh cream in the centre here, and 1.5 teaspoons of pure vanilla essence. Now over here on our platter we have the ingredients for our crust. We've got 1/4 cup of softened butter, 1/4 cup of sugar, a teaspoon of pure vanilla essence, a teaspoon of baking powder, and in the centre here 1 cup of unbleached plain flour. So the first thing we're going to do is to make our crust. We're going to get our flour and our baking powder and sift them into our bowl over here. This really is a spectacular cheesecake, and it's not at all difficult to make. And the amazing thing about this cheesecake is that it doesn't have any eggs in it. Now you might say, well, how's it possible? And how's it going to taste? Well, it's going to taste absolutely fabulous, and it's quite possible. Let's just combine our flour and baking powder here for a few seconds. Now we're going to cream our butter and sugar. Let's grab our bowl from over there, and let's put in our sugar, like so, and our butter. This butter has been allowed to soften, so it's completely malleable to the will of the cook. You can do with it as you please. There we go. Creamed butter and sugar. Let's grab our vanilla essence, pop it in, like so. Lovely aroma of vanilla there. This pure vanilla essence is made from real vanilla beans. Adds a wonderful flavour. Now let's combine our creamed butter and sugar and vanilla with our flour and baking powder, like so. This is our crust. A very nice crust it is too. It's like a biscuit crumb crust. I'm going to use my hands for this. I'm going to rub it all in together, like so. Revolving the bowl with my left hand and rubbing with my right. So as we rub this in, we'll notice that it doesn't actually resemble a pastry, because that's not what it is. If we wanted to make this into a pastry, we'd have to add some liquid like milk or water. This is just like a biscuit crumb, and instead of making it into a pastry, we're going to sprinkle it into the bottom of our 10-inch spring-form cake tin. Let's pop it all in fact, like so. Let's press it all down here nicely. Very simple. As you've probably gathered by now, this crust doesn't go up the sides of the tin, but merely lines the bottom. And it also is helped along by the fact that we've got a lovely non-stick cake tin here. So that's it for our pressing on our base. We're not going to cook our base beforehand, we're going to cook it all together. Let's grab our big bowl here, and now we're going to combine all our filling ingredients, 2 types of cheese, our sugar, lemon, and all the other lovely things. Let's pop it all into the bowl here, starting with, what should we start with? The cream cheese. Here we go. Cream cheese galore. If you're on a diet, forget this one. Let's get our ricotta in there. Look at all that lovely creamy substance. Now we've got our sugar, groans of terror. Just a dash of cream to moisten it all up. Groaning with terror out there. And some lemon juice. And our arrowroot. The lemon juice and the arrowroot help to bind it all together. We've got our vanilla, our lovely vanilla flavour. Now let's fold it all together. I think I'm going to bring in my whisk at this point. And let's beat it to a frenzy. Right, here we go. It's looking wonderful. Whew, that's about as much as I can do at this point. It's looking absolutely wonderful. Let's pour it into our cheesecake base, shall we? Put our base down here, and let's give it a big sploosh. There we go. All pours in very, very nicely indeed. Let's help it along with our spatula here. Every last little drip of wonderful fattening cheesecake filling. Like so. Let's change hands. I'm right-handed. It's a lot easier. Do it with my right hand. There we go. Lovely. Well, I must admit that's a very perfectly proportioned cheesecake there. Enough room there for the filling to cook. Sometimes when you bake a cheesecake, it comes up a little bit over the edges, but that's fine, because when you take off the outer ring of your spring form, it all sort of fits back together very nicely. So now it's time for baking. we're going to put it in our oven, which is 180 degrees Celsius, 355 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to bake it for about an hour and a half. Now there's a few transformations that your cheesecake will undergo during that time. Sometimes it goes very dark on top, don't worry, that's natural. Sometimes it cracks a little bit. Sometimes it even comes up over the top just a little bit and drips. Don't worry, that's perfectly normal behaviour for a cheesecake. Let's pop it in there now and give it a nice hour and a half baking time. Mighty hot. Here we go. It's looking wonderful. Have a close look here. It's actually looking very, very exotic. It's still very soft on top here, and it's subsided, but this is a normal behaviour of a cheesecake. When we take off this springform pan, we're going to have a beautiful exotic cheesecake, but we can't do that straight away. We have to leave this to cool down now, at least 2 hours or so before we put it in the fridge, and then after it goes in the fridge, another 24. That makes sure that cheesecake is nice and firm. But what I do have over here in the fridge is a lovely cheesecake that I made a day and a half ago. Yesterday I popped it in the fridge. In the afternoon I decorated it with lovely cherry topping and it's ready to go. So let me clear the area here. Looks like we're going to have 2 cheesecakes instead of 1. Or at least I am. There's our cheesecake cooling down merrily. Let's grab the other one, shall we? Ooh, what a beauty, as they say in Australia. What a beauty! Oh, this is actually a blueberry cheesecake. I made a mistake, not a cherry cheesecake. I was running out of cherries, but I think blueberries more than adequately do justice to this beautiful cheesecake. Alternatively, you could try mangoes or strawberries or you name it. My mind is boggled. Anyway, here we have a beautiful specimen of a beautiful cheesecake for a beautiful patio lunch. Well, that's it for this edition of Cooking with Kurma. I do hope you'll enjoy preparing these dishes as much as I've enjoyed sharing them with you. Happy and healthy eating.